I am Charlie Becker. I'm Charlie Becker with the U.S. Forest Service Forest Products Lab, and I'll be your moderator. I would like to thank you for attending this session and being a part of the 2021 Forest Products Society Virtual International Conference. As you can see from the introduction slide, we have a very diverse and knowledgeable group of presenters. I hope you had a chance to see their pre-recorded presentation. However, if not, all the presentations will be available through May of 2022. So be sure to save the email in which you received your personalized access link. Please feel free to submit questions at any time using the chat box feature and indicate whether the question is for the group in general or a specific panelist. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, so please keep your microphone muted unless participating in the discussion. Before we start with the questions, I would like to give a quick background on this session and introduce our panelists. There has been a tremendous amount of change both up and down in utilization and markets over the last 20 years that has impacted forest management and products being developed. This has led to traditional markets like pulp and paper converting from writing papers to packaging and sanitary products, sawmills moving from grade to industrial and building lumber, and increased dependency on imports and exports. At the same time, advances in science and technology have led to the development of new products and markets to take advantage of available forest resources and new demands, like reducing forest fire fuel loads, finding markets for waste or low value wood, improving wood durability or fire resistance, or improving the growth and quality of the trees. The goal of this session is to look at an example of both traditional and emerging markets and products and how they are adapting to today's world and what the future may hold. Our speakers are here to hopefully answer those questions. So without any more delay, here are our distinguished panelists. First, we have Delton Alderman, Research Forest Products Technologist with the U.S. Forest Service Forest Products Lab. Mike Eckhoff, Codes and Education Specialist with Hoover Treated Wood Products. Tom Miles, Executive Director of the U.S. Biochar Initiative. Alice Palmer, an independent researcher and consultant. Don Peterson, Executive Director of Urban Wood Network. And Don Rockwell, President of Florida FGT LLC. So to start the question and the discussion, I'm giving out to the group, how do you see the product or market in your presentation influencing forest management or wood utilization over the next several years? And what is your top concern or what could impact that future? And we will start with Delton.
There's very few things in housing construction that is either directly or indirectly affects forest management. You look, I think the 25,000 board feet equivalent go into every home, new home being built. And then you have, that's just for framing and structural panels. And then we really don't have a clue as to how much hardwood goes into a house. The biggest fear from if I am in the housing industry is if there's some kind of a exogenous shock that just brings an end to the current economy. Otherwise, most people that I read think this could go on for 2 or 3 more years, the current housing boom.
Okay, thank you, Delton. Mike?
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Charlie, for the question. From our perspective, as a fire retardant treated wood manufacturer, we see tremendous potential for increasing the utilization of fire retardant treated wood, primarily because, as I mentioned in the presentation, we have the ability to reduce hazardous fuels in the forest, take that material, not only use it in the wildland urban interface courtesy of the building codes, but also be able to use it in densifying urban corridors, such as non-load bearing partitions and high rises. So I think that the opportunity is there. There are challenges, though, for your second question, from an FRTW perspective, particularly with awareness that, for instance, for academic programs, students are primarily in architectural programs learning about steel and concrete. Wood has essentially become the wrong kind of four-letter word. We also have challenges with the codes that folks are looking for a way to maintain the biophilia. They want their wood decks, and rightfully so. But then we see issues with folks proposing to use coatings and paints in lieu of those pressure impregnated materials. So I think there's the potential for a rush in response to the crises that we see with emerging wildfires. So those are the things that are on my mind.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Tom.
Yeah, biochar is the carbonized residues of wood products, and really in my career we've gone from a conversion of waste wood to waste wood chips, conversion of the sawdust and hog fuel residue to energy, and now we're looking at carbon markets. And so biochar really represents a couple of things: new opportunities for cash flow to wood processing. It's a little different than when I was a graduate student making solid wood products. Now I'm cleaning up after us and converting hog fuel into biochar and hazardous fuels from the forest into biochar. And what it represents, I think, to the wood products industry is an opportunity for increased cash flow from the emerging carbon markets. We're now seeing biochar being sold on the carbon markets. Improving not only agriculture, but also we've used the biochar in growing trees, in nurseries and so on, and in outplanting. And we've also seen biochar products getting into building products, improving building products, improving the qualities of building products. So I think that the major impact that biochar could have, hopefully, is to reduce the cost of waste disposal and increase the value of wood products, reduce hazardous fuels. And hopefully that could be an impact. But like new products, the big challenge is appropriate policies that encourage the use of biochar, recovery of biochar, and simply education, people becoming aware of the product. So I think those are the opportunities and the impact for biochar.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Alice.
Remember to unmute myself this time. My presentation was on the global evolution of demand and supply of softwood logs and lumber over the past decade, sort of on a complete global scale. So what we're seeing in a nutshell is that the global log supply, notwithstanding a few specific areas such as the US South, in total, the global log supply is getting stuck. We're sort of reaching a plateau, whereas demand, with the demand in China and the recovery of the US housing market, is galloping ahead. So we're going to see a period where there's perhaps more demand than supply and increasing prices. So on a global basis, this means potentially more opportunities to expand the forest industry, but that will mean more investment, and that could be risky for some companies.
Okay, thank you. Don Peterson.
Thank you, Charlie. Urban Wood Network, our saying is trees first, wood next. What we define as urban wood, urban trees, are trees that were not planted with the primary purpose of forest products. So this could be in downtown Chicago, or it could be a right-of-way that's being trimmed out where the trees aren't typically utilized. So we're looking to utilize urban trees that need to be cut down for whatever purpose and utilize them to their highest value. And sometimes that highest value might be mulch or firewood, but there also are just tremendous opportunities for sawing lumber out of them and using them in commercial applications. The Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee for the Milwaukee Bucks has urban wood in it, but also a lot of people, if the tree's cut out of their yard, they have that attachment to that tree. And one of our stories is make that tree live on, whether it's as a coffee table, a mantle, whatever. So that connection has been really strong. And the Urban Wood Network now is across 21 states. We have members. We've got 3 chapters. We're developing 6 more right now. So the movement is really taken off, and I think there's tremendous opportunities around the country to utilize this unusual resource. When you think of forest management, you don't think of urban trees.
Okay, thank you, Don. Don Rockwell, are you with us?
I believe I am. Am I coming through?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Tom nicely identified what the market potentials are for biochar, and the species that was the subject of my presentation. While it's a minor player in terms of being planted in the southern United States, it's a major player on the world scene. So eucalyptus certainly can be making good quality biochar around the world. The other aspect that, again, is a policy determined potential is growing the trees for carbon sequestration. So whether we do that in the US or elsewhere around the world, growing eucalyptus at the rate in which they do produce and sequester carbon offers tremendous potential.
Okay, thank you, Don. Delton, I have a question for you in the chat. What do you think the baseline demand for single family housing is? In past was about 1.6, I assume, million. How do you think it has changed, and with shifts to multifamily housing?
Well, we have been running below the 50, 60-year level since the housing crash, but that changed last year. I didn't run statistics, but we're substantially above the long-term average. With that said, we're still, by my estimates and by 2 or 3 others, we've underbuilt houses 3 to 4 million units in the past 10 years. So that's going to have to change. But this all boils down to demographics, and you can ask which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But without the demographics, it really the economics are secondary. But most people projected that we would be in, just due to the millennials, a housing spike. Some people had it started in 2016, running to 2022. That didn't happen, primarily because of economics. Well, now it is happening, and they see it running to about 1.1, 1.2 million for the next couple of years. And then from 2025 to 2050, there are a couple of papers out there that they have single family starts running from 800,000 to 1 million units for the next 25 years. That's solely based on demographics. It's uncanny, the 2 studies I've read, that they're almost verbatim on their long-term projections. Multifamily may pick up again, but in the future. Right now, it's on a downtrend because there was so much multifamily built from like 2012 to 2018. And a lot of huge projects are coming online that are being completed. And with COVID and other things, a lot of multifamily people had to offer discounts to get people to move in last year. I don't know. And then you're looking at, I just don't know. Multifamily demand will always be there, but I don't know if it'll be as great as it has been for the last 10 years. Then with COVID, we had, it depends on who you read, the urban exodus still going on. It's the phenomenon they call Zoom towns, people moving away from big cities to resort areas or just rural areas. And just the past couple of days, I've seen numerous articles saying that people are quitting their jobs because they don't want to go back to the office. They don't want to go into the city. Now, if that's going to hold long term, I don't know. But, just sum up, probably by 2025, single family starts are going to level off if the forecast is right for the next 25 years. Multifamily housing is projected to tail off to and run about 600,000 units for the next 25 years. So that's the way I know to answer that one.
Okay, thank you, Delton. Hey, Don, have one for you. In a city, who typically owns the wood from a tree in the terrace, i.e. between the street and sidewalk in a residential area? How would it work for a homeowner to get lumber from a tree that needs to be cut down in their terrace?
A good question. In the city, I think there's two parts here. Typically, it is the city that owns it if it's between the sidewalk and the curb. And part of it is the municipalities we work with and to get them to utilize the wood. And we've got a lot of instances where these municipalities are making this available to woodworkers. It's a reduction in expense for them. They don't have to take that wood and chip it or move it off site. The arborists with the municipalities, their main concern is to get that tree out of there and plant a new one. So if we can utilize that tree, typically it will help reduce expenses. So just asking that question of the municipality, are they utilizing the tree and where is it going? And getting connections with those sawyers and woodworkers that utilize those urban trees would be a way to find that out. And a lot of these companies track these trees. So if a tree is cut down on a certain street, they will have a GPS or some identification where that tree came from. So connecting through the Urban Wood Network, wherever you live, we can probably connect you with our members in that area and get some information to you on how you might be able to do that.
Okay, thank you, Don. Just a reminder to everybody that if you have that's participating and attending, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we will get them out to our panelists here. Question again, I'm going to have for everybody here, as we've been hearing about environmental concerns and climate change. How do you think climate change or the other environmental concerns will affect future markets for the products that you are dealing with? And we'll go in reverse this time. And Don Rockwell, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you, Charlie.
I have problem.
No problem. The interest, of course, with climate change being addressed by carbon sequestration through the growth of trees is certainly going to be a strong motivator for carbon sequestration as a product from eucalyptus, as my presentation discussed, but other fast-growing trees as well. So it would seem that that is just going to be a huge driver.
Okay, thank you. Don Peterson.
Yes, Charlie, thank you. I would see kind of the same answer as Don Rockwell here, carbon sequestration, where in the past, a lot of the urban trees that were cut down were chipped and brought to a landfill. In the cases where we're getting it sawn up and using them in long-lasting products, we've got the carbon sequestration. Also, the types of trees that are being planted, we've had a lot of research done on what's most applicable with the projected forecasts with climate change on what trees to plant. And that'll give us an idea of potential utilization in the future when these trees need to be removed.
Okay, thank you, Don. Alice, how do you see it affecting the global softwood markets?
That's actually a very interesting question. We had an excellent panel yesterday on the use of wood in large construction, and we're already seeing in Europe that an increase in large mass timber construction is increasing the demand overall for softwood lumber in that region. So as global demand for softwood logs and lumber increases, an increased demand for wood as an environmentally friendly building product will even further increase demand for wood. So we're getting to the point where we may have to make a somewhat paradoxical question of ourselves. Is it more environmentally friendly to cut trees for climate change, or is it more environmentally friendly to leave trees standing because they're trees, of course, and it's old growth and all the stuff that we're talking about in British Columbia right now? Maureen did an excellent presentation yesterday about how it is environmentally friendly to cut trees. Going forward, we may reach a point where we have to think about this more. How are we going to support our global demand for climate-friendly products, and at the same time support all the other things that we want our forests to do? And there may be a reckoning where we have to switch to more production, whereas right now the ball seems to be swinging in the opposite direction.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Tom, your thoughts?
I think climate change represents both an opportunity and also pressure, I think, on the industry to adapt to climate change. We see a strong emphasis on decarbonization now. We see large companies looking at ways to displace their dependence on fossil fuels, and they look to us from the biochar side. And that goes back upstream to the 250 million tons a year of wood waste that we have available. It can be converted to both energy and renewable carbon. I see a technology driver in the sense that we need to find ways of recovering more carbon from the wood and wood waste that's available. So we sequester wood. I think we'll see an increase, obviously, in building and sequestering carbon in that way. But I think we'll also see more emphasis on carbon renewal, wood being 50% carbon. Right now, when we make something like biochar, we convert half of the material into energy and half of it into a biochar soil amendment or carbon removal product. And I think we'll see technology drivers that will recover a higher percentage of that carbon and then perhaps polymerize it into consumer products and other kinds of products that will represent longer term. So I see a couple of drivers there, and then also, of course, it will hopefully, as the agricultural industry, if you will, strives to reduce fossil inputs, they can do that partially by using biochar as an amendment. So climate change is going to have a huge impact, I think, on our biochar business, if you will, which now is growing very slowly.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Mike, your thoughts?
Thank you, Charlie. So I see the answer to your question, one possible answer to your question in two different tacks. One, certainly to hop onto the sequestration bandwagon. Certainly we see an opportunity for sequestering carbon using solid wood products. And to give you an idea, at least from an FRTW perspective, Woodworks conducted a study of a school built in El Dorado, Arkansas. And what the designers for that high school chose to do is use untreated wood and fire retardant treated wood as their primary building material instead of steel and concrete. They end up saving conserving at least, over 11,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide, which to put that into more easily digestible terms is the equivalent of taking about 2,100 cars off the road for a year in terms of emissions, or conserving enough energy to power 970 homes for a year. So I think that climate change through the sequestration concerns certainly would encourage the use of more wood products in construction. Now, the other part of that is the increasing wildfire intensity. And that's really where I see the role for FRTW in this case, because now we have a material that could be harvested from the wildland-urban interface, but also used in the wildland-urban interface, courtesy of the International Wildland-Urban Interface Code. So I think that as long as climate change continues to, the impacts certainly are increasing. We're seeing more and more record-breaking fires from year after year. But I think the long term, as others have indicated, climate change presents an opportunity for us to more aggressively address our forest health crisis, utilize that material, and help reduce our fuel loads and the intensity of those wildfires due to climate change exacerbation.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Delton, your thoughts?
Thank you. First off, I think Rick Bergman of FPL 4851 has a paper published on carbon storage in single family housing. And if you look at the aging of the U.S. housing demographics, we have an old housing situation in the United States. Average age of home is around 45 years. That's the best I can remember. It may be in there. So you're looking at a long-term storage of carbon in just the U.S. housing stock alone. So I think it bodes well for wood frame construction and the carbon benefits from building. And you can say that the housing market has been at the forefront of carbon change since its inception.
Okay, to follow up on that a little bit, we've talked about climate change in the environment. There's also a big push with sustainability, certification, and things along that line. How do you see just in the public's mind with concerns with sustainability of the forest resource affecting any of the products and stuff that are either the present products or the future products coming on? And Delton, we're going to start with you again.
I think, okay, I'm not familiar with North PNW, Pacific Northwest mills, but most of the mills operating in the U.S. South want their logs to be, the logs to stump to buy to be certified. Many of the hardwood companies have SFC or FSI certification. So for a consumer, I think for most people, that's going to information is going to be readily available. Now, as far as building construction people, I've not seen one of the bigger firms use that as a marketing tool or in their overall sales of homes. But the potential for sustainability is there from the production side already.
Okay, jump around a little bit. Don Rockwood.
The sustainability aspect associated with planting forests offers large opportunities for incorporating organics into forest management, soil amendments. Certainly biochar added into the soil is increases the soil properties and increases tree productivity. There are organic fertilizers that are made from biosolids, which can also be utilized in lieu of many of the inorganic fertilizers that are currently part of forest management. So establishing plantations using sustainable establishment and management practices does seem to be the way that forestry should be headed.
Okay, thank you, Don. Mike?
Thank you, Charlie. So to kind of piggyback on what Don just said, certainly it feels the direction that things should be going. And certainly, for instance, in terms of FRTW manufacturing, companies can manufacture their materials to meet requirements under FSC or SFI, for instance, and can even enroll as a smart wood chain of custody company. So there are ways for the industry to meet those demands. However, anecdotally, when I've given presentations, lunch and learns to architecture firms and so forth, the primary questions that I get asked are about toxicology and off-gassing, which in the case of FRTW, there isn't any off-gassing. But then other concerns about availability and pricing. When it comes to sustainability, it seems like that's, at least from our perspective, less of a concern as availability and pricing, which I found to be interesting and maybe a little troubling too.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Actually, I was in a presentation with another group yesterday where a survey said that that is not as high a concern as a lot of people think it is also with finished products.
Right.
Thank you. Alice, do you have any thoughts?
I would have to agree with what Delton and Mike have both said. Based on my experience working in industry a decade ago, there's sort of there's a point to where companies just want to be able to do business. So I mean, companies that are registered, for example, with Forest Products Association of Canada, in order to be a part of these organizations, they have to be certified. So most of the organizations are big companies in the US and Canada and Europe, and some of them in Asia and elsewhere in the world have gotten certified, but it's more just sort of seen as a cost of doing business. I don't see an awful lot more growth in certification as a way of producing additional value. That said, there has been an interesting movement within the Forest Standard Council or FSC certification. In the past, you could get a lot more FSC goodie points. Well, you could get a lot more points, green building points, under the what are the big green building systems by ordering in local steel beams or putting in electrical sockets for electric cars in the past than you could for using wood. Wood was actually sort of sidelined. It wasn't seen as a green material, whereas now there's a movement within within the green building movement to include a certain amount of carbon accounting. So this puts more of an opportunity for wood in general, whereas in the past, some of the green building systems only are awarded brownie points for FSC and not for wood in general.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Tom?
Yeah, I see sustainability and certification in the marketplace, as Alice and others have talked about. The certification often is a requirement for sale in certain markets, but the sustainability is a little bit like organic foods. You know, it may be $1 billion business, but it's only a small part of the $40 billion business, or whatever the food business is. We go to great lengths in organizations like the US Biochar Initiative and the International Biochar Initiative, put together scientific committees, spend years coming up with certification schemes so that the product can be safe from a toxicological point of view, it can be stable from a carbon point of view, and it can be sustainable. And that sustainable piece is the hardest sell. So I think although a lot of people aspire to sustainability, I don't think it's a driver for many people for buying a product, but it's still something that we need to work on.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I have one in the chat, and I'm just going to open this up to anybody who wants to answer it, because I'm not sure who would be the best one to answer it. In the US, we tend to replant, as discussed yesterday. What is the overall replanting rate worldwide?
This is not a direct answer to the question, but with regard to eucalyptus planted worldwide, it's about 18 million hectares.
Okay, thank you, Don. Anybody else want to jump in?
Hey, Charlie, this is Don Peterson. You missed me on the last one, so
Oh, I'm sorry, Don.
I
With
will
two
jump
Dons, I get confused.
I will jump into that one first, and then I'll answer this one. And I'll hit sustainability first with urban wood. One of our issues with sustainability is when we get something like emerald ash borer, all of a sudden we get the market flooded with all these trees coming down, and the industry has to ramp up. And then once that goes through, then it goes back down. And how do you adjust for those influxes? So that's been a big question for us, but I think we're handling it fairly well. And then the certification is both FSC and SFI have kind of ignored urban wood, as we have approached both of them in the past with very little interest. SFI is starting to come around. We actually got a grant from them this year to look into things, but we are creating our own certification system within the urban wood network from our partner in California. But I think a lot of what we do already addresses a lot of the certification issues, where I had talked about how we track the trees and we can actually say this product came from that tree, which is a lot more specific than a lot of the current certification systems out there. In regards to the replanting, as I just mentioned with emerald ash borer, and I guess just to go back to that for a minute, is one of the big things that's come out of things like emerald ash borer is diversification of planting. We found some cities where 50% of the trees they planted 40 years ago were ash. So now a lot of cities are putting in that qualification not to plant more than 10% of any one species when they're replanting. So that's a guard against having these big events where a specific insect or disease comes through to a certain species. But a replanting is a big issue. Anything that in the urban environment they can do to save money, like utilizing the wood that cuts down on their costs, they can put more money into replanting.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Yes.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please do.
Okay, well, I'd like to go back on my previous answer. The acronym that I was trying to remember was the U.S. Green Building Council. The U.S. Green Building Council used to give extra points for FSC certified wood, but no extra points for any other kind of wood as a green building material whatsoever. And it was of great consternation to the wood industry. So we're starting to see that change a little bit. Now, regarding replanting, in North America, just about everything is replanted or at least restocked with some other natural reforestation methods, as in Europe. Now, in Russia, you do see a lot more natural reforestation. So you've seen a lot of forests, hardwood or softwood forests cut down and come back to an earlier cereal stage hardwood. That's been of some consternation to certain environmental agencies, because FSC has allowed this. It's from a wildlife perspective, that's fine, but of course from a wood production perspective, allowing your forest to come back as poplar may not be as good from an economic perspective. So that's happening globally. As for Southeast Asia, we are seeing some countries ban exports of tropical logs. So I don't know if that has changed the amount of deforestation there. There's still deforestation happening.
Okay, thank you, Alice. We're down to about 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is give each person, 30 seconds to a minute to kind of just give me your final thoughts as we end this question and answer. And we'll start with Tom Miles.
So thank you, Charlie, and thank you for organizing this session. And I've learned a lot actually in the last hour, and also from your presentations. And my thought is, I've been for my career scraping the bottom of the barrel here, disposing of or repurposing waste from wood products, and I'd hope that people would consider biochar as an alternative, both for carbon sequestration, for improving overall our carbon growth. So I guess with that, I'm positive and optimistic. I think about the forestry and wood products industry, and we've got room to grow.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We'll go to Don Peterson since I've left him out earlier.
Thank you, Charlie. I think I'll just follow up on Tom. As urban trees have been looked at as a waste in the past, that a lot of arborists and municipalities, their purpose is to have living trees there, and once they have to be cut down, it's how can we get rid of them the quickest, and we're helping out with that with the Urban Wood Network. And I think just since we've started in 2017 and we're up to 21 states that we have members in, and we're starting all these chapters, that I think there's just tremendous potential to keep this movement going and growing. So I appreciate the opportunity to present here.
Okay, thank you, Don. Delton.
Well, it's obvious the U.S. housing market is red hot right now. It's last couple of months, the forest products, lumber and structural panel prices have put somewhat of a damper on it. But in the last week, lumber prices futures have gone down $300 since Friday. So we've underbuilt homes by 3 to 4 million. So the housing market looks good for the next 3, 4, 5 years, as long as there's no exogenous shock, whether that be economic or war or something like that. So the future looks good for the next 4 or 5 years.
Okay, thank you, Delton. Don Rockwood.
Exciting times seem to be ahead with regard to planting trees and using trees. The products that were new in the session here at the convention were certainly exciting, but I think things that can be made from wood are even more exciting. There are a lot of ways in which we can convert wood into products that would be equivalent to those derived from fossil fuels. So in that sense, I think there's a lot of opportunity for those in the wood products arena. For those of us in the forestry arena, the incentives for planting trees make it incumbent upon us to plant the right trees for the right purposes and for the greatest market opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Don. Mike.
Thank you, Charlie. Excellent question. And to reiterate what Tom said, thank you for moderating and doing the heavy lifting. I have to share the optimism that everyone else has talked about. I think there's tremendous opportunity. Fire retardant treated wood has been around since 1893. And I think that the future looks bright going forward, whether it's working on single family homes in the wildland urban interface or multifamily structures in densified geographic corridors. I think the future looks bright so long as we continue having people and having forests. I think that this is it's all up from here. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Alice, I'll let you have the final word.
I have to echo definitely what Don said, both about opportunity for wood products and for forest, and what Mike says in the overall optimism for wood products producers going forward, with the caveat we will run into increased demand for just basic wood fiber for all the different things that we want to produce. And of course, it takes time to grow these trees. So we need to be forward thinking, and companies and governments need to think about making wood products and wood fiber a priority for land management.
Okay, thank you, Alice. And thanks to all the folks who have sat in. We have reached the end of our time. I would like to thank all of our panelists and session attendees for joining us. If there are any other questions, you can have contact information at the conference website. I highly recommend that everybody, if you have not seen the pre-recorded presentations, to please go look at it. And there was also contact information from all of our panelists today if you would like to contact them with additional questions afterwards. I want to thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you,
Well done.
everybody.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you,
Great
Charlie.
job.